I sit in my car outside the cafe, watching her through the large glass window. She's laughing. The way she tilts her head, tucking her hair behind her ear like she's nervous, used to be reserved for me. Now, she's leaning closer to some guy, her hands grazing his across the table. My stomach churns as I grip the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. 10 years of marriage, and she's out here with him. She doesn't know I followed her. She doesn't know I've been piecing things together for weeks. Her sudden need for me time, her late nights at the gym when her hair smells like cologne, and her phone always turned face down. I didn't want to believe it, but here it is, staring me in the face. I want to storm in there, drag her out, demand answers. But I stop myself. She'll deny it. She'll lie. No, I need more than just catching her in the act. I need her to confess. And for that, I need a plan. Hours later, she comes home. Her smile as fake as the excuses she's been feeding me. "Hey, babe," she says, kissing my cheek. I can barely stand her touch. The urge to confront her boils in my chest, but I swallow it down. Instead, I play dumb. "How was your day?" I ask, my voice calm, almost bored. "Oh, you know," she shrugs, tossing her bag on the couch. Same old, same old. It takes everything in me not to yell, to shake her and scream, "Liar!" But I smile and nod, glad to hear it. The next day, I start gathering everything. Phone records, receipts, anything that can prove what she's been up to. I even borrow a friend's car to follow her without being noticed. It doesn't take long before I have everything I need. I know her favorite spots, her routine, and even her excuses. She's not as clever as she thinks. But tonight is the night I take control. When she walks in the door, I'm waiting. "We need to talk," I say, keeping my voice steady. She pauses, her eyes narrowing. "What's wrong?" I hold up her phone. "I think you already know." Her face pales, and for a moment, she's silent. But then she laughs, a nervous, high-pitched sound. "What are you doing with my phone?" "I could ask you the same thing about your late-night workouts with Ryan," I snap, throwing the name like a punch. Her eyes widen, and the truth hangs in the air between us. She stumbles backward as if my words hit her like a physical blow. "Ryan," she whispers, her voice barely audible. You're mistaken." I laugh, but there's no humor in it. "Mistaken? You're seriously going to stand there and insult my intelligence after everything I've seen?" Her face flushes, but she holds her ground. "You're being paranoid, overthinking everything like always. Ryan's just a friend." "Just a friend?" I snap, stepping closer. Friends don't sneak around together, hiding messages and making excuses. Friends don't meet up at hotels, Lisa. Her mouth opens, but no words come out. I can see the gears turning in her head, trying to craft a lie that might stick. But I'm done playing this game. I toss a folder onto the table between us, the contents spilling out, photos, screenshots of messages, and even timestamps from when I tracked her car. Her eyes dart to the evidence, and for the first time, I see panic set in. "Where did you get all this?" she demands, her voice trembling. "Does it matter?" I say, my tone ice cold. "The question is, what do you have to say for yourself?" For a moment, silence fills the room, heavy and suffocating. Then, like a dam breaking, the excuses pour out. "It wasn't serious. It was just a distraction. You've been so distant lately, and I needed someone to talk to. Someone who made me feel alive." I can't help but laugh, shaking my head. "Alive? You needed to feel alive. So you decided to throw away 10 years of marriage? 10 years of trust, love, and everything we built together?" Her tears start, but they don't move me. "Not this time. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispers, her voice cracking. "I didn't mean to hurt you." "Hurt me?" I roar, my voice finally breaking free of the calm facade. "Lisa, you destroyed me. Every time you looked me in the eye and lied. Every time you left this house pretending to be my wife while you were with him. You didn't just hurt me. You tore our life apart." She reaches for me, but I step back, disgusted. "Don't," I say, my voice low and dangerous. "Don't you dare try to act like the victim here." "What do you want me to say?" she sobs. "I made a mistake, okay? I made a mistake, but we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can make this work. I stare at her, the woman I thought I knew, and realize there's nothing left to say. The life we had is gone, replaced by this hollow shell of betrayal. You want to fix this? I say, my voice calm again. Then start by packing your things. You're leaving tonight. Her head snaps up, shock replacing the tears. You're kicking me out? You left this marriage a long time ago, Lisa. Tonight, I'm just making it official. Lisa's sobs grow louder, her tears now a torrent. You can't just kick me out. Where am I supposed to go? Why don't you ask Ryan? I snap, crossing my arms. He seemed happy enough to take what wasn't his. Let him deal with the fallout. Her face twists with anger, and for the first time, she stops crying. This is low, even for you, Jake. You're not innocent in this. You've been so consumed with your work, with your stupid projects, you've barely noticed me for months. That's your justification? I ask, incredulous. I was busy trying to give us a future, to make sure we could keep this house, take those vacations you love so much, build the life you always said you wanted. And while I was doing that, you were what? Looking for the next thrill? The next distraction? She opens her mouth to argue, but then closes it again, realizing she has no ground to stand on. I turn away, unable to look at her anymore. Every second in her presence feels like poison coursing through my veins. I don't know who you are anymore, Lisa. I mutter, my voice barely above a whisper. But you're not the woman I married. Jake, please, she pleads, her tone softening, desperate. We can work through this. People make mistakes. I was stupid. I know that. But I still love you. I spin back around, anger flaring hotter than before. Love me? You don't betray someone you love, Lisa. You don't lie to their face and sneak around behind their back. That's not love. That's selfishness. Her shoulders slump, her head hanging low. For a moment, I think she might accept her fate, but then she raises her head, her eyes flashing with defiance. You think you're so perfect, she spits. Like you've never made a mistake, like you've never hurt me. I laugh, a bitter, hollow sound. Mistakes? Sure, I've made them, but I've never broken my vows. I've never betrayed you. She doesn't respond, and the silence between us stretches until it feels unbearable. Finally, I point toward the door. Get out, Lisa. I mean it. If you're not gone by morning, I'll have your things packed and waiting outside. She looks at me like she wants to fight, to argue her way back into my good graces. But she must see the resolve in my eyes, the unyielding finality in my stance. With a shuddering breath, she turns and heads toward the bedroom. I sink onto the couch, the adrenaline draining from my body, leaving me hollow. This is not how I imagined our life would end. But then again, I never imagined it would end at all. Upstairs, I hear drawers opening and closing, the muffled sound of her packing. Part of me feels a pang of sorrow, but it's quickly swallowed by the weight of her betrayal. By the time she comes back down, a suitcase in hand, her face is pale, her eyes red and puffy. She stops in the doorway, staring at me as if hoping I'll change my mind. But I don't move, don't say a word. Finally, she opens the door and steps out into the night, the sound of her suitcase wheels echoing down the driveway. The door clicks shut behind her, and for the first time in weeks, the house is silent. The silence in the house is deafening. It's not peaceful. It's the kind of silence that presses against your chest, suffocating and heavy. I sit there on the couch, staring at the door she just walked through, waiting for the wave of relief that never comes. Instead, my thoughts spiral. 10 years, gone. 10 years of trust, of love, or at least what I thought was love. I replay the last few months in my head, scrutinizing every moment, every smile, every touch. How long had she been pretending? How long had I been blind? I stand up, the weight of it all too much to bear sitting still. The house feels different now, colder, emptier. Her things are still everywhere. The jacket she always draped over the back of the dining chair, the half-finished cup of tea on the counter, the pictures on the walls. Our wedding photo stares back at me, mocking in its innocence. I grab the frame, my hands trembling, and set it face down on the table. I can't look at it anymore. I can't look at any of it. I need to move, to do something, anything, before I lose my mind. In the garage, I find the box I've been meaning to take to the dump. It's full of old junk, but tonight it serves a different purpose. I start collecting everything that reminds me of her. Clothes from the closet, shoes from the hallway, her favorite mug. Each item feels like ripping off a bandage, exposing a fresh wound underneath. I don't stop until the box is overflowing. Dragging it to the front door, I place it just outside. A symbolic eviction of everything she was, everything she represented. When I return inside, the emptiness feels a little less suffocating, but only just. I sit back down, my head in my hands. What now? The question loops in my mind, a haunting refrain with no answer. I grab my phone, hesitating for a moment before opening my messages. There's only one person I can talk to about this, Mike, my best friend since college. If anyone can help me make sense of this mess, it's him. You up? I text, my fingers hovering over the screen before hitting send. It's late, but I know Mike. He's probably up watching some terrible late-night action movie. A minute later, my phone buzzes. Always. What's up? I type out the reply, pausing only to breathe through the anger building in my chest. Lisa cheated. It's over. The dots indicating his reply appear almost immediately. No way. Are you serious? What happened? I can feel the weight lifting slightly just by telling someone, by not holding it all inside. I explain everything. How I followed her, how I confronted her, how I kicked her out. By the time I'm done, my hands are shaking, but the anger is less sharp, more manageable. Good for you, man, Mike replies. You don't deserve that crap. Want me to come over? I think about it for a second, then shake my head even though he can't see me. Not tonight. I need to be alone. Fair enough, he texts back. But if you need anything, call me. And I mean anything. Thanks, man, I reply, the weight in my chest easing just a little more. I put the phone down, the silence settling over the house once more. But this time, it's not so suffocating. It's the kind of silence that comes before something new, something better. The next morning, sunlight filters through the curtains, harsh and uninvited. I slept on the couch, fully clothed, too drained to make it to the bedroom. My body aches, my mind foggy from the restless night. For a moment, I forget everything that happened. But as I sit up and see the empty space where her jacket used to hang, reality slams into me like a freight train. I drag myself to the kitchen, the smell of stale tea lingering in the air. Her mug is still there, half full, the tea cold and forgotten. I stare at it for a moment before dumping it into the sink. The clink of porcelain against metal feels louder than it should, like it's punctuating the end of something. Coffee. I need coffee. As the machine hums to life, I notice the folder I left on the counter last night, the one filled with all the evidence I'd gathered. I flip it open, scanning through the photos and messages again. Each image feels like a fresh stab to the gut, but I can't look away. It's like touching a wound to make sure it still hurts. The text messages between her and Ryan are the worst. Can't wait to see you tonight, Redheart. Last night was amazing, babe. Each word is a nail in the coffin of what I thought we had. My jaw clenches as I slam the folder shut. Enough. The coffee is ready, but I don't bother with a mug. I pour it into a travel thermos and grab my keys. I can't stay here. The walls feel too close, suffocating me with memories I don't want anymore. I drive aimlessly for a while, the city passing in a blur. It's strange how everything looks the same, as if the world doesn't realize my life just imploded. Eventually, I find myself at the park, a place I haven't been to in years. It's quiet here, the kind of quiet that feels more like a balm than a burden. Sitting on a bench overlooking the lake, I let the stillness seep into me. The ducks gliding across the water, the rustle of leaves in the breeze. It's a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. For the first time in what feels like forever, I take a deep breath and let it out slowly. My phone buzzes in my pocket, pulling me out of the moment. It's Mike again. You okay? I hesitate before replying. Getting there. Good. Let me know if you want company later. We can grab a drink or something. I type out a quick "will do," then put the phone away. A drink sounds good, but I'm not ready to face anyone just yet. I need to figure out what comes next, how to rebuild when the foundation has crumbled. As I sit there, sipping my coffee and staring out at the water, a thought strikes me. I've spent so much time trying to make Lisa happy, trying to be the husband she wanted, that I forgot about myself. Maybe it's time I start thinking about what I want, about who I am without her. The thought doesn't fix everything. It doesn't erase the betrayal or the pain. But it's a start, a tiny flicker of light in the darkness. I stand up, feeling a little steadier on my feet. There's a long road ahead, and I don't know where it will lead. But for the first time in a while, I'm ready to take the first step. By the time I get home, the sun is high in the sky, its warmth doing little to thaw the cold in my chest. The house greets me with an eerie quiet, the kind that settles in when the life has been drained from a place. Lisa's absence is like a phantom, her presence still lingering in the details. The pair of shoes she forgot by the door, the scent of her perfume faint in the air. I grab a trash bag and start clearing out the remnants of her life here. Each item I throw into the bag feels like lifting a weight off my shoulders. The jacket on the chair, gone. The framed picture of us on the mantel, gone. The candle she insisted on lighting every evening, gone. When I'm done, I tie up the bag and leave it by the door. Tomorrow, I'll drop it off at a donation center. For now, it's enough to have it out of sight. I head to the bedroom, the place that feels most tainted by her betrayal. The sheets smell like her, and it makes my stomach churn. I strip the bed, throwing the sheets and pillowcases into a heap on the floor. They'll be the first thing I get rid of. Standing there in the empty room, the mattress bare, I feel a strange sense of catharsis. This is the first step, I tell myself. The first step toward reclaiming this space, reclaiming my life. My phone buzzes on the nightstand. It's Mike again, but this time he's not texting. "What's up, man?" I answer, my voice rough. "You sound like crap," he says. "Have you eaten today?" I glance at the clock. It's almost 2 in the afternoon, and I realize I haven't eaten anything since yesterday. Not yet. Well, get off your ass. I'm coming to get you. We're grabbing burgers. I open my mouth to protest, but he cuts me off. Don't argue. You need this. I'll be there in 15. True to his word, Mike shows up 15 minutes later, leaning on the horn until I drag myself outside. He grins at me from the driver's seat of his beat-up truck, his easy confidence a welcome contrast to the storm raging in my head. "Let's go," he says, and I climb in without a word. We end up at a diner we used to hit up in college, the kind of place with cracked vinyl seats and a menu that hasn't changed in decades. The familiarity is comforting, a reminder of simpler times. Over greasy burgers and 2 salty fries, I tell Mike everything. The confrontation, the evidence, the empty house. He listens without interrupting, his brow furrowed in concern. When I'm done, he leans back, crossing his arms. "Man, I don't know how you held it together. If it were me, I'd have lost my damn mind." I came close, I admit, pushing my fries around on the plate. But what's the point? She made her choices, and now I have to figure out what's next. Mike nods, his expression serious. "You're right. It sucks, but you're handling it the best way you can. Just don't shut yourself off from people, okay? You've got friends, Jake. We've got your back." His words hit harder than I expected, and for a moment, I have to look away to keep my emotions in check. "Thanks, man," I say finally, my voice low. We finish our meal in companionable silence, the weight of the conversation hanging between us. As we head back to the truck, Mike claps me on the shoulder. "One day at a time, brother. You'll get through this." And for the first time, I believe him. By the time I get back home, the sun is beginning to set, casting a warm orange glow through the windows. The house feels quieter now, but it's a different kind of quiet, less suffocating, more like the calm after a storm. Mike's words echo in my head, a steady reminder that I'm not as alone as I feel. I sit on the couch, my laptop resting on the coffee table in front of me. It's time to start thinking about what comes next. The idea of diving back into work is both daunting and comforting. Work has always been my safe place, a refuge where things are logical, orderly. I open my email, scanning through the unread messages. Most of them are junk, but one catches my eye. It's from a client I haven't spoken to in months, asking for help on a project. I hesitate for a moment before typing out a reply. "Let's talk Monday," I write, keeping it short and to the point. As I hit send, I feel a small flicker of purpose reignite. It's not much, but it's a start. The rest of the evening passes in a blur of small, mundane tasks. I take out the trash, vacuum the living room, and even water the plants, things I haven't had the energy to care about in weeks. Each task feels like reclaiming a little piece of myself, a little piece of the life I want to build moving forward. Later, I pour myself a glass of whiskey and sit out on the back porch. The night air is cool, the stars scattered across the sky like pinpricks of light. I take a sip, letting the warmth of the drink settle in my chest. My phone buzzes again, and I glance at the screen. It's not Mike this time. It's my sister, Clara. I haven't spoken to her in months, too caught up in my own life to stay connected. I hesitate before answering, but eventually, I swipe to accept the call. "Hey, Clara," I say, trying to keep my voice steady. "Jake, it's been forever. How are you?" Her voice is warm, familiar, and for a moment, I feel a pang of guilt for letting so much time pass. "I've been better," I admit, swirling the whiskey in my glass. "Lisa and I, things are over." There's a pause on the other end, and I can almost hear her processing the news. "Oh, Jake, I'm so sorry. What happened?" I give her the condensed version, leaving out the grittier details. She listens without interrupting, her concern palpable even through the phone. When I'm done, she lets out a heavy sigh. "You don't deserve that," she says firmly. "But you're strong, Jake. You'll get through this." Her words are comforting, but what surprises me most is how much I needed to hear them. "Thanks, Clara. That means a lot." We talk for a while longer, catching up on life and family. By the time we hang up, I feel a little lighter, a little more anchored. It's another small step forward, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. As the night wears on, I sit on the porch, the glass of whiskey empty by my side. The road ahead is still daunting, still filled with uncertainty. But for the first time, I feel like I can face it. One day at a time, one step at a time. The next morning, I wake up with a sense of clarity I haven't felt in weeks. The weight of Lisa's betrayal is still there, but it feels less oppressive, like a bruise that's starting to fade. I throw on some clothes and head to the kitchen, determined to make a real breakfast for the first time in days. Bacon sizzles in the pan, and the smell fills the house, chasing away the lingering emptiness. As I sit at the table with my plate of eggs and toast, I grab my laptop again. Work emails can wait. Today, I want to focus on something more personal. I start drafting a list, goals, plans, things I want to do now that I'm free from the life I thought I had. The first item on the list is simple: take care of myself. For too long, I've been putting Lisa's needs above my own, neglecting my hobbies, my health, my happiness. That changes now. The second item is more daunting: fix the house. It's been years since I did any real work around here, and the place is starting to show its age. Painting the walls, fixing that leaky faucet in the bathroom, maybe even redoing the kitchen. It'll keep me busy, give me a sense of purpose. The third item is the one I linger on the longest: rebuild my relationships. Lisa's betrayal didn't just affect our marriage. It isolated me from the people who matter most. Friends, family, even Mike. I need to make an effort to reconnect, to let them back into my life. I stare at the list for a moment, then add a fourth item: find myself again. It's vague, but it feels right. I don't know exactly what it means yet, but I'll figure it out as I go. Later that afternoon, I head to the hardware store, determined to start tackling item 2 on my list. The aisles are crowded, filled with people grabbing supplies for their weekend projects. I wander through the paint section, running my fingers over the sample cards. The house has been the same dull beige since we moved in. It's time for a change, something bold, something that feels like me. As I'm debating between 2 shades of blue, a voice interrupts my thoughts. "You know, that one's a bit dark for a living room." I turn to see a woman about my age, her dark hair pulled back into a loose ponytail. She's holding a can of paint in one hand and a brush in the other, her smile warm and genuine. Yeah, I say, holding up the card. You think this one's better? She nods, her smile widening. Definitely. It's brighter, more inviting. Unless you're going for the cave look, of course. I laugh. The sound surprising even me. Thanks for the tip. I'll take it. She glances at the supplies in my cart and raises an eyebrow. Big project? Something like that, I say, shrugging. Fresh start. Her expression softens, as if she understands more than I'm saying. Good luck with it, she says, giving me a small wave before disappearing down the aisle. I watch her go, a strange mix of emotions swirling in my chest. It's nothing, I tell myself, just a kind stranger. But as I load the paint into my car, I can't help but feel a spark of something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope. Back at home, I set up in the living room, covering the furniture and taping the edges of the walls. With each brushstroke, the room starts to transform, the old beige disappearing under the vibrant blue. It's hard work, but it feels good, productive, cathartic. By the time I finish the first wall, I'm covered in paint, exhausted but oddly satisfied. I step back to admire my work, a smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. It's not perfect, but it's a start. And for the first time in what feels like forever, I'm okay with that. The next morning, the freshly painted walls greet me like a small victory. The vibrant blue makes the living room feel brighter, more alive, like it's finally mine. The satisfaction lingers as I sip my coffee, scrolling through my emails. Work can wait a little longer. Today, I want to focus on the house again. I decide to tackle the kitchen. Lisa had always talked about remodeling it, but never followed through. Now, I can make it exactly how I want. The countertops, the cabinets, even the flooring. It's all fair game. I jot down some ideas and head back to the hardware store, this time with a clearer vision. As I'm loading supplies into my cart, a familiar voice catches my attention. Back so soon? I turn to see the woman from yesterday, this time holding a roll of wallpaper and a can of adhesive. She grins when she sees me, her eyes sparkling with amusement. You're really diving into this fresh start thing, huh? Yeah, I say, chuckling. Figured I'd ride the momentum while I have it. She gestures to my cart, which is now overflowing with paint, brushes, and a box of tiles. Looks like you're taking on the whole house. Something like that, I admit. What about you? Big project? Just redoing a spare room, she says, shrugging. I've been putting it off for months, but you've inspired me to finally get it done. I laugh again, surprised by how easy it is to talk to her. Glad I could help. She tilts her head, studying me for a moment. You know, if you ever need a hand with all of this, I'm pretty good with a paintbrush. The offer catches me off guard, and for a moment, I don't know how to respond. That's really nice of you, I say finally, but I wouldn't want to impose. She waves me off, her smile unwavering. It's no trouble. Besides, it's always more fun with company. I hesitate, the weight of my pride battling with the idea of letting someone in, even just a little. Okay, I say at last. If you're serious, I could use the help. Great, she says, her grin widening. I'm Claire, by the way. Jake, I reply, shaking her offered hand. Her grip is firm, confident, and I can't help but feel a flicker of something I haven't felt in a long time. We exchange numbers, and by the time I leave the store, my phone buzzes with a message from her. Let me know when you're ready to get started. Back home, I dive into the kitchen project, the tiles and paint transforming the space piece by piece. The work is exhausting, but it feels good, like I'm taking control of something tangible in a world that's felt out of my hands for too long. Later that evening, I text Claire, letting her know I'll be working on the cabinets tomorrow. Her reply comes almost instantly. I'll be there. The next day, she shows up on time, a toolkit in hand and an enthusiasm that's infectious. We work side by side, chatting easily as we sand, paint, and install. Her laugh fills the room, and for the first time in weeks, the house feels less empty. By the time we're done, the kitchen looks like a completely different space. I stand back, admiring our handiwork. Not bad, I say, glancing at Claire. Not bad at all, she agrees, her smile warm. You've got a good eye for this. I feel a small swell of pride, the first in what feels like forever. Thanks. Couldn't have done it without you. She shrugs, playfully nudging my shoulder. What are neighbors for? The comment catches me off guard. You live nearby? 2 streets over, she says casually. Small world, huh? I nod, a smile tugging at my lips. Yeah, small world. As she gathers her things to leave, I find myself reluctant to see her go. Hey, I say, stopping her at the door. If you ever need help with that spare room, you know where to find me. Her smile softens, something unspoken passing between us. I'll hold you to that. As the door closes behind her, the house feels a little less empty, a little more like home. The next morning, I wake up with a renewed sense of purpose. The kitchen is unrecognizable, and the house is slowly beginning to feel like my own. For the first time in weeks, I feel like I'm not just surviving, I'm moving forward. After breakfast, I grab my list from the fridge. There's still so much to do, but instead of feeling overwhelmed, I feel motivated. Item 2, fix the house, is well underway. Now it's time to focus on item 3, rebuild relationships. I start with the easiest one, Mike. I owe him more than a burger and some fries for how he's been there for me. I shoot him a quick text. Beer on me tonight? My way of saying thanks. His reply comes almost immediately. Damn right it's on you. See you at 8. With that settled, I think about Clara. It's been years since we've really talked, and reconnecting with her yesterday reminded me of how important family is. I pick up the phone and dial her number. Jake, she answers, her voice bright. Twice in 2 days? I'm starting to feel special. I chuckle, settling into the couch, just trying to make up for lost time. We talk for nearly an hour, catching up on everything we've missed in each other's lives. She tells me about her kids, her job, and even some embarrassing stories from our childhood that I'd rather forget. By the time we hang up, I feel lighter, as if a small part of the weight I've been carrying has been lifted. Later that evening, Mike shows up at my place with a 6-pack, even though I'd promised to buy. Old habits die hard, he says with a shrug as he cracks one open and hands it to me. We settle into the living room, the newly painted walls a subtle backdrop to our conversation. He talks about work, about his latest misadventures in dating, and for the first time, I find myself laughing without forcing it. You know, he says, leaning back in his chair, I was worried about you, man. After everything with Lisa, I'm still figuring it out, I admit, taking a sip of my beer. But I'm getting there. One day at a time. He nods, raising his bottle in a toast. To moving on. To moving on, I echo, clinking my bottle against his. After he leaves, the house feels less lonely. The silence doesn't weigh as heavily, and for the first time in weeks, I go to bed without the ache of betrayal gnawing at me. The next day, Claire texts me a photo of her spare room, half painted with streaks of color where she's testing different shades. Need a second opinion? The message reads. I smile, typing back a quick reply. Be there in an hour. When I arrive, she greets me at the door with a paintbrush in hand and a smudge of blue on her cheek. Welcome to the chaos, she says, leading me inside. The room is small, but it's clear she's put a lot of thought into it. Samples of wallpaper and paint are scattered across the floor, and a ladder stands in the corner, half covered in drop cloths. So, she says, holding up 2 paint swatches. What do you think? Sky blue or seafoam green? I pretend to consider it seriously, stroking my chin for effect. Definitely seafoam. It's more calming. She laughs, tossing the swatches onto the table. Good choice. Now grab a brush. You're not getting out of here without doing some work. We spend the afternoon painting, chatting about everything and nothing. She tells me about her job, her friends, and how she ended up moving to the neighborhood. I share a little about my own life, careful not to dwell too much on Lisa. For the first time in a long time, the conversation feels natural, effortless. By the time we finish, the room is a soft, inviting shade of green, the walls glowing in the late afternoon light. Claire steps back, admiring our work. Not bad for a day's work, she says, grinning at me. Not bad at all, I agree, feeling a strange sense of contentment. As I head home, I realize that the spark of hope I felt yesterday has grown into something more. a cautious optimism about the future. The following days fall into a rhythm that feels almost normal. I wake up, make breakfast, tackle another house project, and spend the evenings unwinding with a book or a movie. It's simple, but it's exactly what I need right now. Structure, progress, and the steady reclamation of my life. Claire stops by more often, sometimes to lend a hand with the renovations, other times just to chat. Her presence is easy and uncomplicated, a breath of fresh air in the midst of all the upheaval. She's full of ideas too, suggesting little touches that make the house feel more personal, more mine. One evening, as we're hanging new curtains in the living room, she turns to me with a thoughtful expression. "So, what's the end goal here?" I pause, the curtain rod balanced in my hands. "What do you mean?" She gestures around the room. "All these changes. Is this about the house, or is it about something bigger?" I consider her question, the weight of it settling in my chest. "It's about moving forward," I say finally. "About letting go of what was and building something new." She nods, her eyes soft with understanding. "Well, you're doing a damn good job of it." Her words stay with me long after she's gone, a quiet reassurance that I'm on the right path. It's not just the house that's changing, it's me. That weekend, I decide to tackle the backyard. It's been neglected for years, the overgrown grass and weeds a testament to how much of my energy had gone into keeping up appearances inside the house. Now, it's time to bring the same transformation to the outside. Armed with a mower, a rake, and a set of gloves, I spend the entire day clearing away the overgrowth. By the time the sun begins to set, the yard looks almost unrecognizable, a clean slate, ready for whatever comes next. As I sit on the back porch, a cold beer in hand, I think about what I want to do with the space. A garden, maybe, or a fire pit for summer nights with friends. The possibilities feel endless, and for the first time in a long time, that thought excites me. My phone buzzes with a message from Mike. "Barbecue tomorrow. You in?" I hesitate for a moment before typing back, "Absolutely. What can I bring?" His reply is immediate. "Yourself? And maybe some of that backyard energy you've got going." I chuckle, setting the phone aside. It feels good to say yes to things again, to feel connected to the people who matter. The next day, I head over to Mike's place, a six-pack in hand. His backyard is already buzzing with activity. Grill smoking, music playing, and a mix of familiar and unfamiliar faces scattered around the patio. "Jake," Mike calls, waving me over. "Glad you could make it." He hands me a beer, introducing me to a few of his friends before pulling me aside. "You seem good," he says, studying me closely. "Better than I've seen you in a while." "I am," I admit, taking a sip of my drink. "It's not perfect, but it's better. One step at a time, right?" "Exactly," he says, clinking his bottle against mine. "Here's to new beginnings." The evening passes in a blur of laughter, good food, and easy conversation. For the first time in months, I feel like myself again. Not just the guy trying to piece his life back together, but the guy who knows how to enjoy it. As I drive home, the windows down and the cool night air brushing against my face, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time: contentment. It's not a complete happiness, not yet, but it's close. And for now, that's enough. Monday morning rolls around, and for the first time in weeks, I feel a sense of purpose as I open my laptop. The email from the client I'd replied to last week sits at the top of my inbox, and I click it open. It's a straightforward request, a project that will take focus and effort, but nothing I can't handle. As I dive into the work, the familiar rhythm of problem-solving pulls me in. It's like riding a bike, second nature once I get started. The hours slip by unnoticed, the quiet hum of productivity filling the space that had once been so empty. When I finally pause to stretch and grab a coffee, I notice the pile of completed tasks on my desk. It's satisfying, tangible proof that I'm moving forward. Later that afternoon, I hear a knock at the door. It's Claire, holding a tray of cookies and wearing a smile that could light up the darkest room. "Thought you might need a pick-me-up," she says, handing me the tray. "You're too good at this," I say, stepping aside to let her in. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion," she says with a shrug. "Just figured you could use some company." We sit in the kitchen, the cookies disappearing faster than I'd like to admit. She asks about the project I'm working on, genuinely curious, and I find myself opening up about my work in a way I haven't in years. "It sounds like you're really good at what you do," she says, leaning forward. "Why don't you talk about it more?" I shrug, the question catching me off guard. "I don't know. It's just work, I guess." "Jake," she says, her tone serious but kind, "it's not just work. It's something you're passionate about. That's worth talking about." Her words stick with me long after she leaves. For years, I'd let my career become just another obligation, something to get through rather than something to be proud of. But she's right. There's passion there, buried under the weight of everything else. And maybe it's time to dig it back up. The rest of the week follows a similar pattern. Work during the day, small projects around the house in the evening, and the occasional visit from Claire or Mike. Each day feels like another step forward, another piece of the puzzle falling into place. By Friday, I finished the client's project and sent it off with a sense of accomplishment. The response comes back almost immediately. "Fantastic work. Let's discuss another project next week." The satisfaction is brief but powerful, a reminder that I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving. That evening, Claire invites me over to her place for dinner. "You've been working too hard," she says when I hesitate. "You need a break." Her house is as warm and inviting as she is, filled with small personal touches that reflect her personality. The smell of something delicious wafts from the kitchen as she pours me a glass of wine. "Cooking is my therapy," she says, setting a plate of pasta in front of me. "Hope you're hungry." We talk late into the evening, the conversation flowing as easily as the wine. She tells me about her dreams of traveling, of starting her own business one day. I share more about my own goals, the list I'd made, and the progress I've been making. By the time I head home, the weight on my chest feels a little lighter, the future a little brighter. Claire's presence has become a steady source of light in my life, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's still hope. The weekend arrives, bringing with it a sense of calm I haven't felt in what seems like forever. The house is slowly transforming into something that feels like mine, and with each passing day, the heavy shadow of Lisa's betrayal fades a little more. I decide to spend the morning working on the backyard again. The freshly cleared space has so much potential, and I'm eager to make it into something that feels alive. I head to the garden center, browsing through rows of plants, flowers, and garden tools. It feels good to focus on creating something new, something that will grow and thrive under my care. As I'm loading bags of soil and a couple of potted plants into my car, my phone buzzes. It's Claire. "Busy today?" "I was thinking about tackling the shelves in my spare room." I smile, typing back, "Just left the garden center, but I can swing by after lunch if you want." Her reply is immediate. "Perfect. I'll have everything ready." Back at home, I spend a couple of hours planting the flowers I picked out. It's messy, sweaty work, but there's something incredibly satisfying about getting my hands dirty, about watching the backyard come to life. When I step back to admire my work, the vibrant bursts of color against the freshly trimmed grass make me smile. After cleaning up, I head over to Claire's place. She's already got the shelves laid out, the tools neatly arranged on the floor. "You're becoming my go-to handyman," she says with a grin as she hands me a drill. "Happy to help," I reply, setting to work. As we work side by side, our conversation flows easily, the rhythm of our shared tasks punctuated by laughter. She teases me about my overly meticulous measurements, and I poke fun at her tendency to change her mind about where things should go halfway through the process. When the shelves are finally up, she stands back to admire them, a proud smile on her face. "Not bad," she says, nudging me playfully. "You're pretty good at this." "Pretty good," I echo, pretending to be offended. "I think you mean amazing." "Fine," she says with mock exasperation. "Amazing. Happy?" "Very," I reply, grinning. As the sun begins to set, she insists on making dinner as a thank you. We settle onto her back porch with plates of grilled chicken and vegetables, the warm glow of the evening sky casting a golden light over everything. "Can I ask you something?" she says after a while, her tone more serious. "Of course," I say, setting down my fork. "Do you ever think about what's next? Not just with the house, but With everything? The question catches me off guard, and I take a moment to consider it. Honestly, I'm not sure. For a while, it felt like there wasn't a next. Like everything just stopped when Lisa left. But now, I think I'm starting to see it. I don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but it's there. She nods, her expression thoughtful. That's a good place to start. And you? I ask, turning the question back on her. What's next for you? She smiles, a soft, almost wistful look crossing her face. I don't know either, but I think, whatever it is, it's going to be good. We sit there for a while longer, the conversation turning lighter as the stars begin to appear in the sky. By the time I head home, the warmth of her company lingers, a quiet reassurance that I'm on the right path. Monday morning arrives with a buzz of motivation. The weekend's work, both in the backyard and at Claire's, has left me feeling like I'm gaining traction. The house looks better, I feel better, and for the first time, the future doesn't feel like a hazy question mark. Work consumes the first half of the day, emails and project planning pulling me back into the familiar rhythm of productivity. When I finally take a break, I glance at my list on the fridge. Item 4 stares back at me. Find myself again. I chuckle, shaking my head. It's vague, maybe too vague, but it's been on my mind more and more lately. What does it even mean to find myself? I'm not sure, but I know where I want to start. By rediscovering the parts of me I've neglected. That evening, I pull out an old guitar from the closet. It's been years since I played, the strings dusty and loose from disuse. I wipe it down, tune it as best I can, and sit down in the living room. The first chords are rough, my fingers clumsy as they stumble through the motions. But as I play, the muscle memory starts to return, the music flowing a little easier with each passing minute. The sound fills the house, soft and familiar. For the first time, it feels less like an empty shell and more like a home. The next day, Claire stops by unexpectedly. She leans against the doorframe, holding a box of pastries. Thought you could use a snack, she says with a grin. I invite her in, and we settle at the kitchen table, the smell of coffee mingling with the buttery sweetness of the pastries. She spots the guitar leaning against the couch and raises an eyebrow. I didn't know you played. Used to, I say, shrugging. Figured it was time to pick it up again. Her smile widens. That's awesome. You'll have to play for me sometime. I laugh, shaking my head. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We spend the rest of the afternoon talking and laughing, the conversation flowing as easily as always. She tells me about a trip she's planning with friends, her excitement infectious as she describes the places she wants to visit. You should come, she says suddenly, her eyes bright. The suggestion catches me off guard. Me? I don't want to crash your trip. You wouldn't be crashing, she insists. It's a small group, and it'd be fun to have you there. Think about it. I promise I will, though the idea feels overwhelming. A trip, especially one with new people, feels like a big step. But as I watch her leave, I can't help but wonder if it's exactly the kind of step I need. That night, I sit on the back porch with my guitar, strumming softly as the stars twinkle overhead. The music is imperfect, the chords sometimes off-key, but it feels good, like I'm reconnecting with a part of myself I'd almost forgotten. As I play, I think about Claire's invitation. Maybe it's time to say yes to something big, to step out of the safe bubble I've built around myself. The thought is both terrifying and exhilarating. I set the guitar aside and stare out at the night sky, the cool air brushing against my skin. For the first time, the future doesn't feel like something to fear. It feels like something to embrace. The next few days pass in a blur of work and small victories around the house. The backyard is finally starting to look like a space I'd actually enjoy spending time in, and the living room has become a place of quiet comfort, a stark contrast to how it felt just weeks ago. But Claire's invitation keeps swirling in my mind. The idea of traveling, of breaking out of my routine, both excites and terrifies me. It feels like a leap, and I'm not sure I'm ready. But isn't that the point of a leap? You're never really ready. You just have to jump. On Friday evening, I decide to stop hesitating. I text Claire, I'm in for the trip. Let me know what I need to do. Her response comes almost immediately. Yes. You won't regret it. I'll send you the details tomorrow. With that decision made, I feel a strange sense of relief, like a weight I didn't even realize I was carrying has been lifted. Saying yes feels good. It feels right. The next day, Claire stops by with a folder full of travel plans, maps, itineraries, lists of things to pack. "You're really serious about this," I say, flipping through the pages. "Of course," she says with a laugh. "I don't mess around when it comes to adventures." Her enthusiasm is infectious, and by the time she leaves, I'm more excited than nervous. This trip might just be exactly what I need. Over the next week, I throw myself into preparing for the journey. I pick up the essentials, brush up on some travel tips, and even buy a new backpack. The anticipation builds with each passing day, and for the first time in what feels like forever, I have something to look forward to. The night before we leave, I sit on the back porch with my guitar, strumming softly as the stars twinkle overhead. The music feels lighter, freer, like a reflection of the changes happening inside me. Claire texts me as I'm playing. "Packed and ready?" "Almost," I reply. "You?" "Of course. This is going to be amazing." I smile, setting the phone aside. Her excitement is contagious, and I can't help but feel grateful for her presence in my life. She's been a light in the darkness, a reminder that even when everything falls apart, there's still a chance to rebuild. The next morning, I load my bags into Claire's car, my heart pounding with a mix of nerves and excitement. She greets me with her signature grin, her energy as vibrant as ever. "Ready for the adventure of a lifetime?" "Let's do this," I say, settling into the passenger seat. As we pull out of the driveway, the house disappearing in the rearview mirror, I feel a strange sense of closure. This trip isn't just about getting away. It's about moving forward, about embracing the unknown and letting go of the past. Claire turns up the radio, a lively tune filling the car as we hit the open road. The wind rushes through the open windows, carrying with it the promise of new beginnings. And for the first time in a long time, I feel truly free. The drive is long but exhilarating. With each mile, the weight of everything I've been carrying seems to lift just a little more. Claire and I talk about everything. Our favorite songs, the craziest things we've ever done, and the places we still dream of visiting. The conversation is effortless, the kind of connection that feels rare and genuine. When we finally arrive at our destination, a small, picturesque town tucked into the mountains, it feels like stepping into another world. The air is crisp and cool, the kind that wakes you up and makes you feel alive. The streets are lined with quaint shops and cafes, the kind of place that seems untouched by time. We check into our lodge, a cozy cabin with a breathtaking view of the surrounding peaks. As we unpack, Claire is already buzzing with ideas for how to spend the weekend. Hiking, exploring the local shops, maybe even a dip in the nearby hot springs. "You've got to let loose a little," she says, poking me playfully. "This is your chance to forget everything and just be." I nod, her words resonating more than she knows. "You're right. Let's make it a weekend to remember." The next morning, we set out on a hike, the trail winding through dense forests and up rocky inclines. The climb is tough, but the view at the top is worth every step. Standing there, overlooking the valley below, I feel a sense of peace I haven't felt in years. The world feels vast, open, and full of possibilities. Claire snaps a picture of me as I take it all in. "For the scrapbook," she says with a grin. The days blur together in a whirlwind of adventure. We explore the town, sampling local food and chatting with friendly strangers. We soak in the hot springs under a blanket of stars, the warm water soothing muscles sore from the day's hike. And through it all, Claire is there, her laughter and warmth a constant reminder that life doesn't have to be as complicated as we make it. On our last night, we sit on the porch of the lodge, a bottle of wine between us and the sound of crickets filling the air. The stars are impossibly bright, their light reflecting in Claire's eyes as she turns to me. "This has been perfect," she says softly. "I'm glad you came." "Me too," I say, meaning it more than I can put into words. "I didn't realize how much I needed this." She smiles, her gaze holding mine for a moment longer than usual. Sometimes, all it takes is a little push to remind us of what's out there. We fall into a comfortable silence, the kind that doesn't need to be filled with words. For the first time in what feels like forever, I'm not thinking about the past or worrying about the future. I'm just here, in this moment, and it feels like enough. The next morning, as we pack up and prepare to head back, I feel a pang of sadness at leaving this place behind. But it's different this time. It's not the sadness of loss. It's the bittersweet feeling of closing a chapter and starting a new one. As Claire and I hit the road, the mountains shrinking in the rearview mirror, I know that things will never be the same. And for the first time, I'm okay with that. Life is unpredictable, messy, and full of twists and turns. But it's also beautiful, filled with moments that remind us of why it's worth it. As we drive back toward the lives we left behind, I glance at Claire, her face illuminated by the morning sun. She catches me looking and smiles, a quiet, knowing smile that says more than words ever could. The road stretches out ahead of us, wide and full of promise. And for the first time in a long time, I'm ready to see where it leads. Life is full of unexpected turns, and how we respond to them shapes our future. Have you ever faced a betrayal or a life-changing event that pushed you to rebuild and find yourself again? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you overcame it. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more captivating tales of resilience and personal growth. Together, let's explore the twists and turns that make life worth living. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.